Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming tonight. For those who don't know me, I'm Mark Bride. I'm Finance Director of OREF, and it's my huge pleasure today to introduce our guest for this evening's talk and questions afterwards. Stuart Brown from Deerness Distillery. For those who don't know Deerness Distillery, you need to go and find it. It's over in the sunny east side. Nearly right at the end, isn't it? Near Lighthouse Corner. I never knew where Lighthouse Corner was because it's where the buses turn around, but it's just near there. So, and he's got some very exciting plans to basically go off grid, I think. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah.
And if you ever do get the chance, it's a great place to go and visit now before everything changes. Anyway, that's a little plug for you. And thanks for joining us.
So I'm Stuart, I'm Managing Director at Deerness Distillery. Also distiller, bottle washer. We do a lot of everything together. We've got a small team there. There's 5 of us. For those who don't know, we've got expansion happening at Deerness Distillery. At the moment, we're gin and vodka and liqueurs. We've been going since 2017. 2016, we started as a business, so we're just over 6 years old now. And right from the start, we were going to expand our business as we grew. Just go through the next bit there. So a bit of my background. So I'm actually, as well as doing distilling, which has been a hobby for nearly 30 years, I'm also an engineer, so I spent a lot of time in the mining field, oil and gas, nuclear, renewables, and a bit of geothermal as well. So I've done quite a varied stuff all over the world, Australia, Papua New Guinea, lots of African adventures, some not so good, but you get that. And settled in Orkney in 2014. So distilling has been a hobby for myself for, like I said, 30 years. As I worked around the world in different places. When I was on site, I'd actually make different spirits while I was working on the projects. And then when we finished the project, we'd sample the product at the end. And after the various projects, people said to me, you should do this as a living. And here we are, 30 years later. So what we're actually doing at the distillery, for those who have been out there, at the moment, we've got one building. It's a sort of standard 60-foot by 30-foot shed. Which is on the far right-hand side. We're expanding into a whiskey, so we've got whiskey still room going in, we've got cask storage going in, and we've got a brand new sort of cafe visitors shop area as well, which is the bit you can see on the top left-hand side here in the pictures. Ignore the colours that are on the buildings, potentially the trees as well, that how long they'll grow. So we've got the whiskey still room. We've got 1,000 litre and 800 litre stills going in there. It's still small compared to Arnold Park and Scapa. 1,000 litre mash tun going in. We've also got cask storage for about 500 casks, our initial sort of cask storage. Cafe, visitor centre, new shop that's going in. And then we're looking at various green powered options to look at getting us off grid. Obviously, over the last 2 or 3 years, quantities have gone up, materials have gone up, power's going up, and luckily I'm sort of fixed on a quite good rate at the moment, but that's going to come to an end in 2024. And then I'm back onto the open market, which is going to be quite a scary option. We're actually quite a small power draw at the moment. Most of our power is LED lighting, a few pumps and things like that. Our stills are gas powered at the moment, but over the next few slides I'll talk you through what we're doing. So the sort of future 1 to 2 years moving forward on the expansion, we're looking at doing on-site grain malting. So we'll be looking at having a 1 ton batch malter on site. We can malt 1 ton of grain. More cask buildings will be the next phase. And then we're looking to grow some grain on Orkney as well. So deer barley's already grown here. We're looking at also doing an oat and a rye whiskey, so something a bit different. We have a huge amount of American tourists that come through to Orkney, and also with the rye whiskey, we've got the ability to, 4 years in a cask. Those casks can then become our ex-bourbon casks, rather than bringing stuff from the States, which again reduces our carbon footprint. We're always looking at new ways of reducing carbon footprint. The distillery at the moment has also got a polytunnel on the site, so we grow quite a lot of botanicals. So our sea glass gin, which is one of our sort of flagship gins, we grow 4 of the 6 botanicals on site. So just trying to reduce our carbon footprint wherever we can. So the grey picture of the building there, the grey building is the existing building. So it gives you one more extent to the building expansion. The little small narrow building in between the existing building and the shop is our whisky area. You see the polytunnel at the far end here, cask storage in the back end, and then you'll notice on the side where the cafe is there, sort of a jutting out, sort of almost like a whiskey barrel coming out of the building, and that is the shop area. And then obviously you've got some car park there and some electric charge points and things like that. And then we've got an outdoor area for the days when you get a nice day to eat outside in Orkney, as long as the midges don't come out. And then we've got the loading area at the back end there, so we kept our sort of public and delivery vehicles separated. Next slide. So the green issues we're already doing, so our glass bottles, we've got paper labels, all of our boxes and packaging. You know, most businesses nowadays are really focusing on their eco footprints. So our packaging tape is paper tape, and it's got tree gum. So it's all recyclable. Botanicals, we compost those when we're using our polytunnel for fertilizer. As I say, we grow lots of botanicals on site. We've got lots of lemon, citrus growing as well. We've got orange growing, mandarin, limes. We've got avocado trees, not doing too well though, but we've got one of those. The building heating at the moment, we actually use the stills quite a lot because when the stills are on, the building's quite a small space inside. But 200 to 300 litre stills at the moment and a 30 litre still. When they're on, they produce quite a lot of heat in the building, so it keeps us nice and warm during the winter. Our production time really is from sort of now really, so we're just in February now. From February right through to Christmas, we're producing constantly. During the summertime, up to about 1,500 bottles a week. The total production averaging around about 20 to 25,000 bottles a year at the moment. And most of that is going within Orkney, off onto the mainland, and then obviously we've got a few European destinations that we send to as well. We used to have a lot more European destinations until Brexit came along, and that sort of put quite a slowdown on the spirits industry with all the regulations and everything else for getting alcohol in and out of Europe. Consolidating loads. So we're a member of Orkney Food and Drink. We're working with some of our other partners in that to try and consolidate loads moving south. And that's probably a big thing for Orkney is, you know, bringing stuff up and down all the time, which does cost us additional compared to our competitors on the mainland. And we try to work together to consolidate loads and reduce deliveries, again, reducing our footprint. So Derness Green Power, what are the options? So part of our expansion plans, we're looking to try and go off-grid and also looking at a water supply as well. So technology we've been looking at turbine systems, compressed air energy, battery storage, which is something I've had a bit of experience with in Australia. I'll talk about that a bit further in a minute. Also looking to convert our stills to electric running off turbines. So we've got the elements in the actual stills and you know, take the stills off rather than using propane gas like we do at the moment. We can take the stills off the power. Biogas. So there's been quite a few things talked in Orkney about biogas. There was, I think recently was a study done. A few people I've noticed in here who actually got the meeting. So in my previous life, I've actually designed and commissioned and constructed 3 big biogas plants up to 1 megawatt diesel gas trains off the back end of those. So quite a lot of experience in the CHP side of things. Solar as well. Quite a few people doing solar panels at the moment in Orkney. Obviously, you need good sunshine for that. I'm from Australia, perfect over there. Potentially not as good here. We're looking at a solar system, and then the potential to mix of wind and solar as well, and then the water source. So where we are over in the east, we've got a couple of places that have got already got a borehole wells in, and we've actually got some water samples off at the moment being tested at the moment on what the actual water quality is like on those. So we put the actual foundations into the existing distillery, and we dug our soakaway, did our septic tank soakaway test. We filled up a 2.5 metre by 2.5 by 2.5 deep, and within 20 minutes, that sucked itself dry, and there was a whirlpool going down through. You could hear the water rushing underneath, so it must be a nice sort of water course running underneath the where we are there. So we're going to be exploring that option. So turbines and things, obviously, we've been looking at some of the vertical turbines, which is a bit different. And this sort of depicts a compressed air energy storage system. So we've got a bit of a turbine, we've got some water into a storage vessel and accumulator there. And the turbine is powering a small compressor, which is compressing that tank. And that's effectively a storage battery. What you've done there is you've used some of the energy to create a storage accumulator. And at a later date, you can release that accumulator through a generator, and you're still producing power off what you've already put into it. So when I was in Australia, I worked on a huge 600-kilometre pipeline, oil and gas, gas and water. It's a coal seam gas project, and we had 600 kilometres of pipeline linking all of the coal seam gas, taking it through right up to the Gold Coast, north of the Gold Coast there, and that was an LNG plant. And we had, as part of our testing, it was all poly pipe, and we used to pump water and air into a pipe and do QA to ensure the welds and everything were perfect. We pumped the accumulators or the welder up to about 150 times its volume, and then you'd check the welds and release that. And the released air would take probably about a week and a half to release all the air. So while we're there, I decided I would put a little turbine on the back end and see what we're getting out off the back of this. And the turbine span for about a week and a half off the accumulator. So there's some good merit there. So we're just doing a sort of small experiment with that at the moment, just to see what that looks like. Obviously, being an engineer, I enjoy this sort of thing. So we're just going to do a small little test bed on that one there. So biogas, electrical and thermal. These are a sort of two 20-foot containers. The left-hand side is the feedstock with the gas membrane, which has got a little gas, it's a little dome on the top there. So you put your feedstock into there, inoculate that, and you start to produce your own methane through a burner, through a turbine. You can produce 30 kilowatts E and 40 kilowatts thermal off those two systems. So we've been speaking to the company that produces this system. They're UK based. We produce, when we start doing our whisky, mash coming at the back end, we're going to have all our botanicals, all of our sort of composted materials. Speaking to quite a few farmers in our local area as well. There's potential to pull some of that waste that normally goes onto the fields or wherever else into this as well. And from that, you can also run biomethane. Biomethane tanks, which then could be our power for the stills, another option. So we're just in discussions with these guys at the moment, just seeing what that system looks, obviously what the capital cost of that looks as well. So there's no point spending £150,000 on a machine that's going to take 50 years to pay back. So we're always looking at cost benefit analysis on the whole thing. This is a recent quote I had for some solar panels. So that's a 40 kilowatt system, so circa £40,000. Obviously, you're not going to be pulling 40 kilowatts all the time. In the winter time, maybe down as low as 10% there on the actual solar panels. So I've been looking at that as well. This is an off-grid system, so this is a complete system that ties in to our existing system, and then we can dispense with the power from the grid. So water. So at the moment, our water is fed water in from like everybody else on the tap. We've then got a reverse osmosis system on our water that strips out all of our everything, basically strips out all the water. Like I said, we're looking at maybe potentially putting a borehole in, and then depending on the water quality from the tests we're doing at the moment, we can pull that off and actually utilize that through processing to produce our processed water. The next slide is just me and a few of my padres looking at just Orkney itself. So obviously I've had lots of experience in different things. That was just me looking at just some of the tidal options. I thought they'd be quite interesting to anyone in Orkney's had a look at that before. Tide comes in, tide goes out. There's quite a big catchment area just in there, and there's no one really uses that area. There's lots of other areas like that as well. And then on to questions. So we do have a new email set up called Whisky at Deerness Distillery. So we are going to be doing very soon a pre-cask release of our casks. So we've got 250 casks, which will be coming up for release. Obviously, they won't be released as in can't drink anything, because it'll be 8 years plus before you'll actually be drinking anything. Apart from once a year, we get sort of a 200 ml bottle to try. So yeah, so any questions? Obviously, a lot of the power things that we are looking at, we're just currently talking to people on those. We haven't got any finite details on those sort of things. And some of them obviously develop or depend on our cost benefit analysis, whether it's actually worth spending the money, you know, depending on how much our pence per kilowatt hour moving forward. There's some ridiculous prices out there for businesses. Some of the guys in town, you know, 60, 70, 80,000 pounds a year, which is crazy money for to try and make a profit from that. And as we move forward with our whisky expansion, especially with the malting machine and also the mash tun, they're electric driven, so we'll be a much higher load than we are now. So basically looking to how we can actually off-grid ourselves or supplement most of our stuff.
Okay, so that's Neil Commode's got a question online, if you're happy to take that.
Yeah, hi Neil, how you doing?
Oh, very good, very good. Thanks, Richard, for that. That was really interesting. Sorry I couldn't be with you. I've got a stinking cold, so I didn't want to share that with the room. I was interested in the compressed air storage side of things, and I just wondered if you got any feel for the sort of the scale of storage you were going to try and achieve with that, and whether you were planning to keep the storage above ground, or were you thinking of burying it, or anything around that space?
Yeah, so the jobs we're doing in Australia, obviously all the pipeline was buried. We're talking about a 1.5 meter diameter poly pipe, huge thickness walls, friction welded with plates, and that was stretching 600 kilometers, carrying, you know, high pressure gas, and that was all underground. But when we did test welds for all those sort of things, we'd take out maybe a 20 meter section, weld those up, put on a compressor. We'll compress it up with water inside the bit of pipe as well, and then compressing that and get to 150 times the volume prior to fail. When we talk about fail, we're not talking about an explosion. We're just talking about a bubble and then just let go. But sub 150 times its volume, we could hold that, and then we could just unscrew the fitting and let it go slowly. And that would run almost a week and a half at a constant pressure. Obviously, it drops off towards the end. But by putting a little turbine on that, it actually spun that and kept that spinning for well over a week. So it's just you know, something I thought, well, that's a good battery storage rather than batteries.
Yeah.
So you could put that in the ground. So you could put you could have a series of pipes in the ground. Obviously, within a field, we're quite lucky where we are. We've got a 5-6 acre field right outside the distillery there. So we could have compressors running on one turbine, running those up, compressing those, and then when that's full, all the power's coming into the distillery. And on the day when that actually starts to dwindle, we can then, with a micro switch that just kicks in and turns those ones over. So just something I thought they're quite a good idea. It's something
Yeah,
you know.
it was the energy storage in the cylinder that I was thinking about. So so I think burying it does make a lot of sense, because that will overcome your risk of catastrophic failure, because that would be quite a bang if that something like that goes off. So it's I think you're right about thinking about burying it. No, that was really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, and you could obviously use a steel container that's a full pressure vessel and see what sort of pressure you can get that pump to. That's another option as well.
Yeah, I think
there's so much.
Sorry, there's a delay on it.
I was going to say, obviously, the lag thing. So, like in Orkney, sometimes you have 140% of power being produced from wind turbines. There's potential to have some sort of energy storage on the side of those that you can reutilize back into the grid or back into the system.
Okay. And just on the tidal side, just to answer a question there. So there's been a couple of ideas around about tidal. And I got involved in one back in the day about using the Churchill barriers, but that was very much as tidal flow rather than tidal barrage, which is what you're talking about there for that site. And I think that the whole thing just comes down to available head. So I think tidal range here is about 2.5 meters on a spring, so about half that on a neat. It's it'll be all low head stuff, so probably Archimedes screw type power takeoff if anything. But it could be worth a look at, but I think it's head that might defeat you here with that one.
You're quite shallow waters around here, isn't it? When you sort of come up to the land, there's no real steep.
Well, it's also the fact that the way the tides interact, we don't get a very high tidal range. So things like, say, the Severn Barrage or Lawrence in France are sort of 7 to 11 meters, something like that. No, 7 to 8 meters. I think Bay of Fundy is about 11 meters, and Annapolis Royal. So you're very low head. There are low head schemes. There's a scheme that was put in near a place called Elling in Southampton, and the foundations for that are Saxon. So they have done low head hydro in the past, but that was for milling grain, and that's still there, and that's still working.
Hi. Can you give us an idea of what sort of minimum load that you would need in a day? So how many kilowatt hours in a day, and what amount of load that you could choose not to use? So, for example, you could choose not to distill on a day when there's not power available. If you had wind turbines, which distill on windy days, what sort of loads would you be looking at?
Yeah, so at the moment, a yearly load at the moment, obviously the expansion would be more load going on. We're about 25,000 kilowatt hours a year. As we move forward, just haven't got all the machinery for the mash tun yet in terms of what its load is through the year. Obviously, it's going to be based on our production rates as well. But yeah, you could do, when we're doing our distilling, so 1,000 litre still, for instance, be about 4 days distilling day and night to keep that running. Our 300 litre stills run about 12, 13 hours. They can do 24 hours if you fill it right up to 300 litres. So there's potential to have days when it is not windy, not distilling. But yeah, the full load factor, we haven't got all the equipment yet in terms of what we need.
Because the thing I'm thinking of is if it's 25,000 kilowatt hours a year, that's about 500 a week. In the winter, your solar that you're looking at might produce 5 kilowatt hours.
Yeah.
You have a huge mismatch. You've got this seasonal mismatch between what you can get from your solar. So even if you can get all the power you need in summer from solar and use your compressed air storage to run it from daytime to nighttime, in winter, you won't have that sort of
that capacity there, will you?
that capacity. So my own personal opinion is you'll have to have some sort of hybrid system with multiple sources of energy, solar, wind, and your biomass. And the biggest thing that I've seen, every single biomass scheme I've ever seen wastes so much energy by running it all the year round. And really, it's got to be there for the times when you've got no solar and you've got no wind.
The ones I've done in Lancashire and in Australia, which were a biogas system, they're running 24/7 all around.
Yeah.
And obviously you've got digestor going, so you've got bacteria producing gas, you've got to burn that off or store it somewhere else for a later date.
But storing a certain volume of gas, which is can then be burned, releases a lot more energy than storing the same volume of air that all you're using is the pressure difference in the air. So if you're building a storage vessel, store gas, you can store gas and still get the turbine using the output as you release it, but that's a minor thing to minor.
Yeah.
The reason you've not included battery storage.
We have got battery, looking at battery as well. So with the solar system there that had a battery as well, the wind would potentially have a battery as well. So there'd be different options. So looking at all those different options as well with the battery.
What capacity we looked at for the 40 kilowatts or
For the battery,
so it would have been an off-grid system.
sorry?
It would have been an off-grid system.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I'd be interested to know what your discussion and relationship is with the grid, because obviously some of these plans will take time to come to fruition. You may have to rely on the grid, which will be expensive, obviously. But is the grid sufficiently flexible to come and go for you whilst these things are coming on stream? And I actually thought this would be quite a big load, but my answer to the question is not particularly big load, really, in the great scheme of things. So perhaps the question isn't as serious as I thought it was, because I thought the load would be much bigger than that.
Yeah, I think because obviously the stills, that's, I'm going to still work out what the stills would be. 1,000 litres stills with an electrical component on that going 5 days straight. Effectively, it's like an immersion heater elements that go in the stills. So there's sort of 3 or 4 kilowatt on those elements. So just got to factor all that into the equation. We're just still getting equipment pricing back from people who can get the full load capacity for the distillery itself.
And can it accommodate you if things go wrong or things get delayed? It has a great deal of capacity.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, we're on the grid as it is just now, and the supply to where we are now is just more than adequate to cover what we're doing. So, just the cost of it.
It's great. There's a tea room in Deerness. For a local tour.
Yeah, tea room and toilet. That's good. The long drive back to Kirkland. Hey,
Are you looking at conventional stills where you operate at atmospheric pressure inside the gap element of the fill rather than a vacuum still, which is much more efficient?
yeah, so it's an open vented still. So traditional copper alembic stills.
So you're not going for an efficient still.
Sorry.
You're not going for an energy efficient still.
No, we're staying traditional on our stills in terms of that's the experience I've got using those ones. One of all of our awards with the ones we've already got. A lot of the modern stills nowadays, almost like a cappuccino machine, you just push the button and it does everything for you. In my book, that's not distilling, that's just making a coffee. So we're going to stay with what we've got, what we know moving forward. So construction wise, I'm going to say we'll start, we're just finalising the last bit through building control. Take a bit longer than we hoped, but it's quite a backlog, obviously, with the last couple of years of projects being stuck in there. We're almost through the last little bits now, and then we're going to start earthworks and everything else from that point forward. Obviously, the buildings themselves are just portal frame buildings, so they're quite quick to put up. For those of you who've been out to the distillery before, it's just a lovely big open plan building. And the next door buildings will be the same. So the whiskey still house will just be open. There's windows all around it. So when you're in the cafe having something to eat or having a drink, you can actually see us in there working, like Oompa Loompas almost. You've got the whole sort of engagement with the working distillery, and you can walk down go and see all the bottling plant and everything else as well. So as our current distillery is, it's a bit like an open kitchen when you come into the distillery. You can see all the process happening in front of you. So it's quite a nice experience. You get to interact with the staff and get to sample some stuff as well, which is the whole point coming up.
So how much of the renewable stuff is in your planning application already, or what do you still need to apply for later?
So the next phase would be additional buildings for cask storage. So
have you applied for the windmills and all that, or is that still to be done?
that's got to be done yet. Yeah.
I'm just wondering how they treat this gas storage, air storage.
I'm curious about the horizontal windmill. How does that compare to the more traditional ones that we see around?
Yeah, so you can get some of the vertical turbines I've been looking at, and some suppliers have been speaking that you can get a 5 kilowatt systems, so 5 kilowatt vertical. Very much similar to.
Are there any different planning rules for them, or is it because the planning rules seem to be related to noise?
Yeah.
Horizontal ones quieter.
Yeah, they are quieter. Yeah. So when the way the fins go, you're spinning, the air's going this way, so the vortex is going north rather than through the plain ones.
How tall do they need to be compared to a conventional turbine?
Not as tall, no. You're not up to your obviously to give it out of public, be able to touch it.
Yeah.
There's not many been installed. Well, I don't think in Orkney is there. I've not seen any in Orkney. So,
Few people have tested the smaller ones, the 3 kilowatt ones, but
yeah,
they're not good, but they withstand
yeah.
The same as just 3 kilowatt, and we'll do it anywhere.
I've seen one that's a vertical, then it's obviously if the wind gets to a certain point, it's got like a shutter that shuts off. So it covers it, so it's not going to get destroyed in high wind.
The seas, I think, so some down over here's got trial one just now.
Oh yeah.
And last week when the wind was pretty bad, it ceased. So he's trying to
Trial and error. Yeah. I mean, I think nearly all businesses around the country at the moment are looking for, what can we do? How can we reduce our power load? If you're in the town, it's much harder. Obviously, you've got the space to do these sort of things and sort of rely on the grid. But there are.
So will it be ground mount? Are you going to put that on the roof? Do you have enough roof space?
We will have quite a big roof space. Wouldn't put the verticals on the roof though. It would be, yeah. So our building, so we got east-west comes right across. In the summertime, does come right across the top of the building. In the wintertime, it just sort of, as you know, scoots around the side. So our winter would be from a solar point of view, would be pretty poor unless you had them ground mounted and angled around so it tracks winter sun as well. So that's all the sort of options we're looking at just now.
Cable across from Thornton, there's been seven at 5 or 6 pence.
What's that?
The Thornton, that's still not far. Take a cable from there, they could probably sell you electricity for less than 10p.
Yeah. The big one at the top there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what they get in. It's just, it was in 5 or 6 pence.
Sure. Is that Richard who's got that one?
Yeah. Ordinary renewable energy. Not far away.
So at the moment we're paying, I locked myself in on a 5-year contract and 15.2 pence per kilowatt just now, which is like really good.
Just on a slightly different topic, I mean, your citrus plants do quite well.
Yeah, but that's really good fruit actually. Enough to make a nice G&T out of it, not enough to actually use in our production just yet, but the trees are still growing. Yeah, we've got 6 or 7 really good lemons this year already. 25 degrees in the polytunnel this morning, so.
We got one aubergine.
Sorry?
We got one
Oh,
aubergine.
yeah.
We can get avocados to grow, I think.
Can you? No.
I think we've kind of got 4 plants.
The tree looks healthy, but nothing's coming out of it yet. So But everything else, the rosemary and the thyme and everything else that grows really well.
You should go and go out at the strong sea and have a look at the monks out there. They've got an amazing system.
Have they? Didn't they build their own wind turbine out there as well?
I don't know, but I haven't been, my wife's been out there, and she said it's extraordinary what they can grow in they're not polycrous, they're glass.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, you've got over the shed with glass, with clear roof.
Yeah.
Or like a perspex roof, is it?
Yeah. And peaches.
And cherries. Those size trees.
They've got nothing out of the bottle.
Get cheap power as well, do they? No, the polytunnels, we've got, we are looking at putting another one in actually, but probably a couple of years' time before we do that. Or even just to go and sit in there and in the out of the wind and out of the in the sunshine, it's nice.
Your whole basis come up in terms of how you're going to generate power, store power, instead of putting all your eggs in one basket and just focusing on one. So it's encouraging to see.
Yeah, I think you had one like to struggle. I think. Yeah. Again, it all comes down to cost in the day. If it's ridiculous amount of money to do it, then it's got to work out what that is over the long-term project of. No one can crystal ball what the electricity price is going to do. Is it going to keep going this way? Is it going to?
I think it'll keep going on.
Yeah.
You hope.
So with fuel, everything else.
You're getting, I think 40 kilowatts. So panels, what sort of annual yield would that give? Do you have any idea of how many?
Yeah, I haven't got all these. I've got all the stuff through, but I can't remember the actual figures on that. We've got a
What percentage efficiency would you do? 25%, 30%, like that?
Well, I know a guy who's in Bercy, he's got a 4 kilowatt system, and on a dull day in the winter time, he's only getting 10% of the 4 kilowatts, so 400 watts.
Depends where it's formation or information of them as well. It's hard to get a precise number.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the systems that you do over here, like the summer, they're doing like 48, 50 kilowatt a day. 6.4 kilowatts slower. So it just depends on where it is.
The location. And you've got winter and summer sun tracking at different heights and different angles.
But today was a good day. Some of them are doing 10, 12 kilowatt today.
Yeah.
That's good considering the winter we've had over there. So
yeah. There's potential of putting a mixture on the roof, some from the ground mounted. So you've got, you're tracking winter down here. You've got summertime up there.
definitely.
So that's all the stuff we've got to be looking at just moving forward. But it's just, I think nearly every business around the, especially in Orkney anyway, are looking to do the best they can do with what they've got. Obviously, it will come at a cost. It takes time as well.
I don't think there's a lot of funding. That's the downside to renewables. I mean, I deal with solar, but there's not enough backing. I mean, there's some grants and stuff like that, but not to the level that I'm aware that you're looking at.
Yeah.
So we maybe need to do it in stages.
Yeah.
So they keep bringing the grants in.
They keep bringing these grants, and then they're sort of very, very sort of small time frame. They're gone again, and you're getting power now, are you?
Not right at this moment, no. but today we made 11.1 kilowatt hours.
And what kind of capacity?
6.4.
6.4.
That roof mounted on the roof.
On the roof, yeah. So it's fixed. Yeah, but it's also winter, so not bad. So with combined with the batteries and charging overnight, we haven't taken anything apart from the overnight charging. We haven't taken any grid power at all.
Yeah, already.
So
We're 6 weeks past the shortest day already.
yeah, okay.
We're a good bit towards the equinox.
We're halfway there.
Yeah.
And you've got electric car as well, haven't you?
Yep.
So when you plug that in, does it drain your battery really quick, or does it strips your battery and then?
I don't charge the car from the battery. Though.
Okay.
I charge the cars overnight and it's cheap.
You put on a fast charger, it's going to be about 7 kilowatt. It'll take some for the battery, some for the solar. Or,
Yeah, the battery can only deliver 3.
equal charge.
But using the Zappy though, you can set it in the summer so that it will only take it if there's surplus. So if it tries to push anything out to the grid, it'll feed it into the car instead. So you've got sort of extra battery storage there.
What would be to look at for you if you're doing the other bit solar? But if you're going to be off grid, don't you, for solar?
Sorry?
If you're going to be off grid for solar.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
At that size, we need to be.
yeah, just can't. Yeah,
Good luck.
How many panels is that?
that is 132 panels.
Thank you very much,
No problem.
and all the best
Thank you
with your
very much.
plans. It's going to be an interesting ride, but we'll be excited to watch it, and hopefully we'll be able to come and see some of the technology in a year or so, 2 years, whatever time, when it's all up and running. And you've got your pipe work running everywhere.
Yeah.
Everyone does.